Hi, this is Simon Upstill and welcome to another tutorial for Motion 5. And today we're going to be taking a look at this classic cell division effect. Now I have no idea how scientifically accurate this is. I looked at various reference images and I quite like these colours, but I've no idea if they're right or not. But the main idea of this was to show you how to do that cell dividing trick. So let's get started. My project, as ever, is 1920 1080, 24 frames a second, and it's 10 seconds long. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make the basic matte object that is going to drive this whole effect. So I'm going to come down here to the shape menu and select the circle tool, and holding down the shift key, I'm going to drag out a circle like that. Now it's blue, but I want to make it white. And I want to come over to the geometry and let's go for a radius of 200. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to offset one of the circles like that. And then I'm going to select this group. And I'm going to come to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur. We want an amount of 400. And then we're going to come to Color and Levels. Now what we want to do here is we want to remove all the softness that the blur has created. And to do that, we're going to select the alpha here in the Levels tool. And let's open up the histogram here just so we can do this quite easily. So I'm going to set a black in value of 0.5 and a white in value of 0.51. And you can see we've now got a very, very tight, crisp shape. Now just watch what happens when I move these two circles. And you can see we've got that nice sucking cell dividing effect. So this is what's going to drive the whole effect. I'm just going to add one more filter to make this a little bit more organic, and that's distortion underwater. I'm going to move that to the back of the group like that. We want this to just undulate very, very gently. So I'm going to set a speed of 0.1 and the refraction will go for 35. Let me just set up an animation so that this is ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to around 2 seconds. Let's select both of these and let's zero out their position so they're in the same place. Then what I'm going to do is hit a keyframe. Then I'm going to step forward to around 7 seconds and I'm going to drag the second circle up there and the first circle down here. And that gives us this as an animation. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a wriggle effect to these positions so that once they've separated, they continue to sort of undulate a bit. So I'm going to select the circle position, add parameter behavior wriggle. This one I'm going to set to subtract. Let's reduce the frequency down to 0.2 and let's set the noisiness down to 0. And let's copy that onto the other circle, set the mode to add. And that just gives us a little bit more randomness. So as I say, this is just the source for everything else that's going to happen. So I'm going to call this group matte. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a clone of it. So right click, make clone layer, and I'm going to turn off that matte group. So I'm going to call this group edges. And with the clone layer selected, I'm going to look for filters, stylize, edges. And you'll see that this has given us this nice edge effect. It's going to be the sort of outer membrane for the effect. Now, if we look at the alpha channel for this, you'll see that this is solid and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to filters, color, and we're going to select channel mixer. And this is a way of making an alpha channel out of the luminance. So down here under the alpha output, we're going to set the alpha to 0, but we're going to select one of the other channels, say red, for the alpha. And then if we look at the alpha itself, you can see that that's just the outline. That's what we want. So just to check this, the state of the alpha, I'm going to add a background. So make a new group, call it BG, move it to the back, come to add object generators. Let's look for color solid. Let's turn it to a very dark blue like that, so we can get a better feel for this alpha channel. So the next thing I want to do is make an animated plasma-ish fill for the inside of the cell. So what I'm going to do is again make a new group, and to this group I'm going to add generators clouds. And so what I'm going to do is right click on it, add image mask, and we're going to use our matte as the image mask, like so. I'm going to come to the clouds generator, open up the gradient, and I want to make this color here sort of mid-gray, something like that. And then I want to hold down the Alt or Option key and drag it to around about here. Select the white one, hold down the Alt or Option key and drag it to around there. And I'm going to switch the method to turbulent, and I'm just going to reduce the speed down to 0.3. So now this has given us something that looks like that. What I want to do again with this is I want to make it transparent using the luminance. In actual fact, what I can do here is I can grab that channel mixer effect, hold down the Alt or Option key and drag it onto the clouds like that. And that's given us that transparency there. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to duplicate this clouds. So right click, duplicate, and I'm going to delete those image mask and the channel mixer, and I'm going to turn it off. Come over here, and I want to make these grey ones black, like that. Then I want to select my original clouds layer like that, come to filters, distortion, and look for bump map. And I'm going to use this second clouds as the source for the bump map. And you can see immediately that that's made it much, much more interesting and much more sort of gloopy and plasma-like. So I'm going to call this group Cell Fill, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of color. So I'm going to come to Filters, Color, Levels, and I'm going to grab the red, and I'm going to reduce this slider here till we're left with this sort of cyany color. Maybe really, really reduce it like that. And I'll possibly also just reduce the green a little bit so it's a little bit more bluey. Okay, then I'm going to take this cell and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it smaller just to identify it. So with this one, I want to just change the color a bit. So come back to my levels here. Let's reset that. What I want to do is make this yellow. So I'm going to select the blue and bring down the value like that. Then I want to shrink it down a bit so it's not sitting right over the top of the other one. So I'm going to select the image mask there, come to Filters, Stylize, and I'm going to grab Min Max. And I'm going to set that radius to 35. What I'm also going to do is set the blend mode of this entire group to color dodge, and that gives us this nice effect here. What I also want to do is just soften off the edges of that image mask so it's not just a perfect circle. So I'm going to come to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and let's make that, I don't know, 65 or something. And that's looking a bit better. What we could do is come to that clouds and very, very slightly change the speed of that. So let's go for 0.35 or something. And then that's possibly too different. Let's go for 0.31. Just wanted to peek through occasionally. Yes, I think that's probably quite good. Okay, so that's the cell fills. What I now want to do is create a nucleus. So again, I'm going to make a new group. So object, new group. Going to come to add object, add a new clouds generator. Going to reduce the horizontal and vertical scale to 24. Reduce that speed down to 0.1. Let's open up the gradient. And I just want to make this gray again. And I'm going to bring it in a bit. And the white I want to make a little bit more gray. So just don't want too much contrast in this. So just enough contrast to separate them out a bit. Hold down the Alt or Option key, drag that towards the lighter one. Hold down the Alt or Option key and drag this one into there. just so we've got a little bit more detail in there. Then obviously we want to mask this, so right click, add image mask. We want to use our matte as the image mask source. And what we're going to do is we're going to shrink it down so we just have a nucleus in the middle. So again, we want to apply a blur and a levels directly to this image mask. So what I'm going to do is come to filters, select Gaussian blur, filters, and select levels. I'm going to set the Gaussian blur again to 400, and I'm going to do something slightly different with this. So come up to the alpha here, and again twirl open the controls for opacity. I want to push it all up to this right-hand side here. So what I'm going to do is set a black in value of 0.93 and a white in value of 0.94. And I think you can see that that's now given us this nucleus in the middle there. So again, let's just do a bit of colorization on this clouds layer here. Let's come to filters, color, levels, and I want this to be kind of yellowy. So what I'm going to do is grab the blue and bring that way down like that. What I'm also going to do with this group here is set its blend mode to multiply. Let's call this group Nucleus. And I also want to add some glow to it. So I'm going to come down to glow and add glow. I can set the radius to 70 and the threshold all the way down to 0. And let's bump up the opacity a bit like that. That looks quite good. Then I'm going to duplicate it. Right click, duplicate. Here I'm going to set the radius to 100. Bring the opacity down just a little bit, increase the threshold. And also obviously want to colorize those edges. So what I'm going to do, you remember I used a kind of blue color for that cell fill there. I'm going to copy that levels. I'm going to paste it onto edges, and now that's got the same color and that's looking a little bit more like it's part of the same thing. So then I want to add some lighting. So what I'm going to do, I think, is close everything up and make a new group at the top, object new group, and put everything into that. And then add object light, keeps 2D, just turn this master group to 3D. Now what I want to do is attach the light to the two different nucleuses. So select the light, properties, right click on the position, add parameter behavior link. If we come into our matte here, I'm going to grab the first circle and drag it into there. Now the problem is the Z position is at 0, as we'll see here, which means it's not doing any illuminating. So we just need to very slightly tweak the behavior, link behavior, to offset that. So 20 on Z, and I just wanted to give the effect of the light slightly above. So I'm going to go for 40 on Y, and actually it's going to come down from the top right here. So let's also go for 40 on X. Must be a bit too much. Let's reduce those down to about 30 each. And let's just duplicate that light, right click, duplicate. And here, behaviors, let's use the drop down menu to navigate to our matte group, matte, and we'll use circle copy because that's the second circle. And that puts the light onto there like that. What I think I also want to do is I want to come to these cell fills and turn off their lighting. So lighting, turn it off. Same with the other one here. Cell fill, turn that off. Same with the edges. Turn that off. This is what we've got now. So what I want to do is now make it look a little bit less sort of flat and dull. And to do that, I'm going to make a new group, object new group. Let's call this group Displace. Let's add two things to it. First of all, add object generators cellular, and then add object generators noise. So I'm going to turn off the noise for the time being. The cellular, I'm going to increase the size to about 30. The speed, I'm going to reduce down to around 0.33. What I want to do here is I want to set its scale to 200 because I want it to be more kind of bigger grains effectively. And I'm also going to set its blend mode to overlay. Right, now I'm going to come down to the Nucleus group here, and let's add distortion bump map. Just put that down below the two glows there, and let's use that Displace group as the source for it. And let's increase the amount to 0.2. And the effect is quite subtle, but it's just given us a little bit more organic quality to that. Let's close up the Nucleus group. Let's come down to the cell fill smaller group here. And again, let's add filters, distortion, bump map. And again, let's add the Displace to that. And hopefully you can see, let me just zoom in a bit. You can see how well that works on this layer here. What I'm going to do is just set that direction to -45 and the amount to -0.2. Now, just one problem here is that we need to set the Displace group to fixed resolution because we've scaled that noise element. And you'll see the difference that makes. It's constraining it to the right place. And now we want to come down to the other cell fill here. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and copy that bump map from the smaller one onto this one. I'm just going to set it up a little bit differently. Let's go for 10 and 0.1 on that. I think you can see how this is sort of adding a lot more interest to this. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my master group here and I'm going to add filters, distortion, glass distortion. So let's increase the amount to 500 all the way up and increase the softness to, I don't know, around something like that. And this has given us this really nice sort of jelly-like quality like that. And there's one more thing I want to do, and that's to come down to the matte group and again add distortion bump map, because I want to be able to just distort the outline a bit more. And again, I'm going to use Displace as the source for that. And I think you can see then we've just roughened up the edges of those, and it just kind of looks a lot more interesting, I think. So I just want a slightly brighter nucleus, I think. So what I'm going to do is come and make a new group and add object generators, look for lens flare. But first of all, what I want to do is add a circular mask to it. So holding down the Alt or Option key with the circular mask tool selected from down here, I'm going to drag out a circle roughly like that, maybe just a bit larger than the size of our actual cells, and come to feather, and I'm going to feather it in like that. Let's come to the lens flare itself. I want to increase the fall off to 10. Don't want any streaks and I don't want any radius. So now we've just got this sort of nice bright blob there. And what we can do is we can link its position to the position of the two different circles. So come over to Properties, Add Parameter Behavior, Link, and from the drop-down menu, we will look for Matte and the first circle there. We'll duplicate this lens flare, come to its behaviors. From this drop-down, we'll select Matte, Circle Copy, and that's our other one there. What I'm going to do is add an extra lens flare, so Object Generators Lens Flare, with the Adjust Item tool selected and my overlays turned on. I'm going to move it up to that top corner there. Let's have a size of 2500 and a fall off of 2.5. And I think that outer color, I want to make it a little bit more blue rather than what it is, something like that. That's fairly good. What I also do is come down to my background here, I think, and add a generator, object generators, clouds. Want a nice big scale, so 128 by 128. Don't want any speed. Let's open up the gradient, copy this black over to around here, and again to there. That's holding down the Alt or Option key. This color here, I'm going to make slightly cyan, something like that. This one here, I'm going to make very slightly redder than anything else, so something like that. This color here, I don't know, go for something like this. And let's come over and just adjust the opacity down to about 20%. It's very subtle, but it just gives a little bit more, just a little bit more interest there. And finally, let's add some particles. So down here in my background group, I'm selecting the circle tool, hold down the Shift key and drag out a circle. Let's center it up. Let's make it white. Let's come to the geometry, set that radius to 10, come to style, set the feather to -10. So we've got a nice soft fading circle. Then come up to Object, Make Particles. Let's select Rectangle for the source, arrangement, Random Fill, size 1920 by 1080. Emission range, let's set to 180. Birth rate, let's set to 50. Life, let's set to 3. Speed, let's set to 24. And then for the color, let's choose over life. Open up the gradient. Let's make this sort of something like that. Let's click in the middle. Let's make it a little bit more white, or less, sort of grey rather. What we also want to do is create a opacity tab there by clicking on that top bar. Click on the left one there, just scroll down here to where it says opacity, turn that down to 0. Let's make another opacity tab up there on the right and set that down to 0. So what they'll do is they'll fade in and out. And then all we need to do is just adjust the scale. Let's go for a scale of 30 and a scale randomness of 50. And now we've got these nice drifting particles. Just always helps to add a bit of depth if you use particles like that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Hope to see you again another time.